Welcome to the Money Watch Show. It's Saturday, July 5th. I know, long weekend. I get it. It may not be the day that you listen to this. Maybe you're going to wait till next week when you're back in your grind. But I am very focused on what is going on for the young graduates out there. And I will bring my co-host, Mark Talercio, on board right now. Mark, it's tough for these kids. There is a lot of pressure that has been amped up on this generation. I can't help but think, these are the kids who are like the COVID kids. They went through this crisis. They graduate, they get their college degree, and the labor market is not that good for these recent grads. So what advice do you have?
Suck it up.
Stop it. Oh my God, you're so bad. I knew you were going to do something like that, but it's different. It is really different. We often will interview folks who are really smart about what it means to graduate when there's a really good economy versus not such a good economy. And, what they tell us is that if you graduate, say, into a recession or even a slower job market, your earnings, not for your lifetime, but like for the first 10 years of your career, can really be a drag. And that will prevent you from doing lots of other things in your life, right? Like the household formation, like buying a home and getting married, having kids. Like there's a lot of delay of all of that.
So what you're saying is you should really, really pick and choose your area of study carefully.
I would. It's tough. It is really very difficult. If you're really considering going to college, you have to be sober in your assessment of what you're trying to achieve, right? And so when you think about whether or not you're going to help your kids out with college or whether you're going to push them in a certain direction, it's still very important to have these conversations that are realistic. You cannot possibly be in a place where, you're just footing the bill and it's going to be bad for your retirement, or you're putting them in such debt that they're in such a big hole. So I think it's important to have those conversations as early as freshman year in high school, just to say, here's what we can afford as a family. I think the other part of it is that the unique aspect of the labor market right now is such that it's not like we're seeing widespread, terrible job losses. It's just a very confounding labor market. And I went on the air on CBS Mornings to talk about how these college graduates, many of them are under pressure recently, because I've been hearing a lot about it. I've been doing some research of my own about it. I've been writing about it. So I think, Mark, let's do this. Let's air the segment. That was when I was on with Tony DeCopel and Adriana Diaz on CBS Mornings. And on the other side of it, Mark and I are going to talk about some of the aspects of, I would say, the confluence of a tight labor market, student loan repayment, what you really need to think about, how you can guide the young borrower and the young college grad in your life. So let's air that segment.
If you know any recent college graduates, you know the pressure they're under to try to find a job, pay off those student loans, get off the couch and move out already. The latest unemployment rate for Americans, 22 to 27, is up from the same time last year, and about a quarter of federal student loan borrowers are considered delinquent or past due on their payments. CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger joins us now with tips on how to make all of this less stressful. Jill, how do you do it?
Well, first of all, you have to get your arms around what is going on in your own financial life. And it has been a tough labor market. It's a very strange thing because, we've been talking for the first 6 months of this year about how the economy's held up pretty well, but not so much for those recent grads who are 22 to 27 years old. And what's been interesting is to see that a lot of those kids, I say kids, but they're young graduates, they lost their jobs when a lot of the tech downsizing occurred. In some of these industries, the last person in is usually the first person out. So it's been a struggle, and the market has actually deteriorated in the last few months. So I think that that's a real issue. I think that when you are looking at your own financial life and you are a young person or you're the parent or grandparent that's involved, the best thing to do is to actually see, where do I stand? Let me look at all of these loans that I have. What are the interest rates, these college loans? How am I going to repay them? Do I need to make some different actions? And what is the money that is coming in? And if it's not that much money, what is going out? What can I do to remain afloat? And it may mean staying at your parents' house. It really might.
Yeah, no.
It really, and for many families, that multi-generational plan is largely intact. But I think it is not being fearful of where you stand, but putting your arms around it, embracing it, and getting an understanding of what is my personal financial position.
So, Jill, with so many people behind on their student loans, is college even worth it anymore, especially since they're struggling economically after graduating?
This is an incredibly important question because for a long time, we knew, like in the last 25 years, there was a differential between people in the workforce who had a college degree and those who didn't. And even in those unemployment numbers, to be clear, the older college graduates still have a huge advantage. Now, a college degree is worth it as long as you finish college and you don't borrow too much money. And by the way, finishing college, it's a big advantage if you get through in those 4 years. If you take that extra year or two to get through, the numbers don't look as good. So when you're thinking about the college experience, it should be, what degree can I earn that I can live with, that I can get a job, that I can support myself and make my student loan payments. This is usually a good idea, like a rule of thumb. That I usually don't like rule of thumb. Borrow the amount of money that you think you can earn in your first job out of college. So if you're gonna have a humanities major, you're only gonna earn 40 or 50 grand that first job out. Well, maybe you don't borrow $100,000.
Yeah.
You're going to be an engineer, a math major. Maybe you can.
Maybe you do.
But we have to be much more thoughtful about the types of colleges, the amount we're borrowing, and making sure we graduate.
Okay, so Mark, the labor market is tough. We had beautiful graphics up, which no one could see, but essentially, we know that the recent college grads who are 22 to 27 years old, that their unemployment rate is about almost 1.5% higher than it was a year ago. So like it's closing in on 6% now, 6.6% over the last 12 months ending in May. It's just the highest level we've seen in a decade. So this is tough. We also know that those recent grads, a lot of the 22 to 27 year olds, they started up their student loan repayments. And we now know that there is just a big chunk of folks who are in default, which means they're delinquent, they're in default. That means their credit scores are taking a hit. And they are essentially making choices about how to manage that. Some of them are taking on extra work to make their loan payments, or they're cutting a lot of that non-essential spending. This kind of made me so upset when I read it, but that the debt burden is causing a significant increase in anxiety or depression, which I think, Mark, has a lot to do with people just not recognizing what these choices in college really are going to do to them down the line, right?
Yeah, I think when you're in the heat of the moment, when you're enrolling in school and you're a freshman or a sophomore, you're not thinking what's coming down the road. But, time's going to come where you're going to have to start paying this stuff back.
Yeah. And they asked me in the segment about, is college actually worth it? It is true that even though college is very expensive, even though people graduate with debt, the median college graduate with a bachelor's degree earned about $80,000. That's compared to $47,000 for someone who only has a high school diploma. So there's a gap, right? But I do think that having the pressure of the loan still does something psychically to you. I also think that it's important that the family really does put a line under this idea that you have to finish that degree in 4 years. That's actually one of if it takes too long to get the degree or you just bail in the middle of school, it's terrible. You still have the debt and you don't have the degree. So we talk about, when you say, Mark, choose a major that's valuable. It's not like, I always used to say like, oh, you can go be a coder. But now I guess with AI, maybe that isn't even the best idea. But I do think that what you really want to try to do is find a degree where you think you can get some job and that you don't borrow more than that first year salary that you would earn. And that if it's a math science kind of job, it's going to pay more than a humanities job. It just is. I also would really warn against young folks hiding out in grad school, because that happens a lot. People are, just go to law school. Really? You're going to go to law school? That's going to compound the problem, really. It just may be a lot harder for you to get out from underneath that debt. So I think that we have to be very clear that these decisions that we are helping our kids make, that we are making sure that they understand and putting real dollars to it. Hey, if you take out that loan and you end up in debt for $80,000, you know what's going to happen? It's going to be that you're going to have to live home for 3 years. Or, you know what's going to happen? You're going to have to choose a job based on salary, not based on what you really want. There may be a better job out there that has a lower pay, but you can't even afford to consider that if you've got a whole bunch of debt hanging over. I guess that at the end of the day, Mark, it's really about making sure that I don't want to say this word like enable, but you're not allowing a 17-year-old to dictate what exactly should be happening that is financially prudent for them and for you. Because we hear from a lot of parents who are like willing to help their kids out. Maybe that your help is not the best thing for them, right?
It's a tough topic because, you want to tell people to follow their passion and to, figure out a way to make a living doing what you enjoy doing. Because if you're doing that, then it's never really a job. But, if you're going to do that, you got to figure out the way to do it the smartest, the best, the most financially responsible way.
Hey, by the way, I think that we were talking about in-state versus out-of-state tuition, and somebody wrote in and said that we were wrong, that it was different, that there was no difference about state versus private schools. That's wrong. I did look that up, by the way, just to circle back around. I did look that up. And of course, it is cheaper to go to a state school if you're a resident of that state. I'm not saying it's cheap. It is cheaper. And it is much cheaper to do that. Now, I'm not saying you can compare that with, hey, maybe I went to a private university that had an endowment and my kid got a scholarship. And yeah, then maybe that works. When you went to Arizona, did you declare residency there?
No, I never had residency, but I don't know what the deal is now. But when I was there, they offered, they had a program that if you went during the summer, there was no out-of-state tuition. It was just all considered in-state. So I took like almost all of my classes during the summer. So I just paid in-state tuition.
That's kind of brilliant. That's great.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It didn't lead to a lot of fun summers, but it was worth it financially. I didn't come out with a lot of debt.
But listen, gang, if you've got a question about your young college grad who is trying to manage his or her or their own lives, all you need to do is go to our website, jillonmoney.com. Click the Contact Us button, write us a note, and let us know if you'd like to join us live or bring your youngster on with you. That would be so much fun. Don't forget to sign up for the free weekly newsletter and check out all the content that lives at the jillonmoney.com website. Okay, you can subscribe to us here on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Mark Talercio is our co-host and executive producer and also king of all things web. We drop our episodes on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen. And as always, we ask that you do something nice for someone else today. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.